My name is Aureo Pinto Jr. I am an accountant in New York. With an office out of Elmsford, New York, and I'm a resident of Yonkers. I am also a registered financial consultant, so I handle all phases of financial planning, and I am an enrolled agent, so I deal with all aspects of taxation, both on the planning side and compliance side. So now that we got that out of the way, uh, today we're going to be discussing side hustles and how to determine which one's the best for you. I'll go through the different types of side hustles, and how to set it up, how to keep the books and records for it, and the legal aspects of it as well, and how to work it into your finances. So, what is a side hustle? According to Influencer Marketing Hub, a side hustle is something that you do in addition to your normal job to earn extra money. So it's very simple. It's basically like having another job, but you're more in control of it. It's something that you determine what you want to do and when you want to do it. So to start off with, as with everything else, you should have a budget. First, you have to set your own personal budget. You have to look at what your expenses are, how to cut expenses if you need to, how to increase your income, which is where the side hustle will come in, and how to stay within your income if for some reason it's difficult to increase your income. So it's a matter of balancing expenses and your income. And your personal budget will let you know how much money you have that you can invest in starting a side hustle. Some side hustles require you to invest some amount of money. Some is fairly easy to start with not that much of a cash outlay. And the personal budget will also let you know that if you do not have any extra money, then that's when you should seriously consider the side hustle in order to cover the shortfall that you have between your expenses and your income. Action steps to take for your side hustles, right? And this is something that I'll cover in more details later. You have to keep good books and records. You have to track your income. You have to track your expenses, and all of this is very necessary in order for you to figure out if it's a viable venture. Are you making money out of it? Are you spending more money, more time that you should for the money that you're getting back? And it's also necessary for tax purposes in order to be able to file your tax returns at the end of the year and accurately report your income and your expenses. So the action steps for creating time for your side hustle, that's another thing. You don't only have to have a budget for monetary reasons, you also need to have a budget for your time. How much time will you have to dedicate to a side hustle? How many hours can you block in a day or in a week or in a weekend, depending on the type of side hustle? You have to eliminate distractions that eat up your time, cell phone, social media scrolling, TV time, etc. And then funds for the side hustle that goes with the budgeting side. But for the time, you have to budget your time as well. How many hours can you dedicate to the side hustle in order to really make it work and make it a viable option? So I'm just putting up a basic budgeting sheet. In some of our other presentations, we have presented similar budget sheets where very simple on a monthly basis. You look at your expenses, your typical expenses, your utilities, rent, mortgage, childcare, car expenses, credit card expenses as well, and then your income. And you compare what your expenses and your income is. Figure out if you have excess money on a monthly basis, which is always good, and you should start putting into an emergency fund or savings, or take a little bit of that and start rolling it into a side hustle that might need a little bit of money outlay as far as setting up the business or buying inventory if you're going to do the selling side. And we'll go through those in the next few slides. So types of hustles. There are different hustles. There are service hustles, which are essentially what all of us are kind of used to, the Uber car services, the Lyft car services, Uber Eats, DoorDash, the various grocery delivery options that are out there. Fiverr, which is a website where you can sign up and pick up assignments for services. If you're a writer, if you are a copywriter or an editor, you can go on and pick up assignments here and there that people who need those type of services will procure on that website. Um, Most of these services are fairly easy to establish and to get into. They're based on your experience, your knowledge, your passion that you have for a particular area. And then there are some side hustles that are services that are regulatory. You need licenses for those. And those would be like the real estate sales, where you need a real estate license. Insurance sales, you need to be licensed by New York State Department of Finance and Insurance. And investment sales, where you need to get your SEC licenses and your FINRA licenses. So there are side hustles that are regulatory based and you need to get licenses. And then there are some that you do not need licenses in order to be able to conduct them. We have products. So products are sales of hard goods. You can make them yourself, like crafts. You can build things that you can sell. You can also purchase for resale as regular inventory. So you can purchase items, and that goes line in line with the reselling of items in the next square. You will purchase items for resale, and then there's various ways of doing that. Now, if they're crafts or hard goods, they're not consumable. They're not something that can be ingested or put on your body or your skin. Then there's no regulations on those either. If your side hustle is a food item, a drink item, some type of perfume, hand cream, cosmetics, things like that, those need to go through Department of Health licensing issues. So you need to go through special classes, special programs to get licensed through Department of Health. You might need to get USDA, Department of Agriculture, to review your product and approve it, or FDA. So there are other regulatory requirements if it's a product as well. If it's just a craft or a hard good that's not consumable in any way, you don't need any kind of licenses for that. Now, reselling of items, there's several ways. You go through wholesalers, you buy wholesale, you keep the inventory, you maintain an inventory, and you sell it at a profit. Or you can do what's called arbitrage trading, which is you buy wholesale online. And some people do this either through Amazon or through eBay. They'll buy a lot. So they'll buy a lot of, let's say, a particular widget. They'll buy a lot of, let's say, 6 dozen. So you want to buy 72 items of a particular widget. And you actually start selling it the minute you purchase it on the same platform. So you can buy it, you can buy a lot of you can buy a lot, and like it's not like a lot as far as quantities, it's called an actual lot. And usually a dozen will be lots. So you can buy one lot on Amazon and flip it and sell it individually, one by one, for a profit, or on eBay. Well, a lot of the two major platforms are eBay and Amazon. Or you can do drop shipping, which is the last square. In drop shipping, you do not buy wholesale and keep the inventory. So you do not have to tie up your money in just keeping inventory sitting there, because you don't know if it's going to sell, how quickly it's going to sell. And there might be other products that you might want to buy, but you already have your money tied up in a particular product that you have in inventory that you haven't sold completely. So in drop shipping, you contract there are different drop shipping companies across the country. And what you do is you get into a contract with them where you become a vendor of their products. You sell the products without holding the inventory. Once that sale takes place, you turn around, you go to the drop shipper, you purchase it from the drop shipper. The drop shipper will pack it, do the invoicing, do the packing slip, and mail it out, and they bill you the difference. So if there's one particular widget that you sell for $20 and you can buy it from a drop shipper, let's say for $8, you sell it for 20, You take the 20 from the client, from your customer, you place the order with the drop shipper. Let's say your cost is $8, the drop shipper will charge you the $8 plus their processing fee to pull from the inventory, pack, and mail it to the customer. So let's say they charge you $5. So now the product cost you 8 plus 5, which is 13. You sold it for 20, you made $7 difference, and that's your profit without even holding the inventory. All you have to do is have a platform where you can sell the items and make sure that there's enough inventory uh, at the warehouse that the drop shipper has. And then you just keep the difference. You don't have to worry about shipping anything out, mailing it, or anything like that. You just collect the money from the client, from the customer. You purchase it from the drop shipper, and they will handle the rest. This is one of the easier ways of doing it, but the only issue with that is that you have to have access to the drop shipper's inventory. Usually they have a portal where you can go in and you can see how much inventory they have of each item. So as you're selling it, you make sure that there's enough at the drop shipper location so that the order doesn't get delayed. And side hustles can take place online, in person, or a combination of both through a hybrid method. So usually the onlines would be the Amazons and like the eBay, like I said. A lot of people are using Etsy for certain crafts and certain things that they build themselves or they put together themselves. They go through Etsy. You can also have your own personal website. Now, eBay, Amazon, and Etsy, when you open a commercial account with them, a business account with them, they will automatically handle the payment method. So as you sell a product, Etsy, eBay, and Amazon, they collect the money and they give you the rest to you once they take their fees off the top. The rest gets deposited into your commercial account. If you have your own personal website, you need to have an actual site that's a secure site, and then you have to have a commerce account for payments in order for you to be able to receive payments. Usually, when you get these personal websites, there are links to that particular website where if you do it through like a GoDaddy or one of these other companies that lets you set up a website, they have contracts with commerce companies where they'll handle the payment methodology. Or you can do it all on your own and do link up an account through Square or through PayPal and do that. But that becomes a little bit more expensive and it's more tedious because you have to control everything. So if you get a website that has a link or has a contract with a commerce uh, company, that's even better because they handle all the payments. For in-person location, basically those are the Ubers, the Lyfts, the deliveries where you have personal contact with the person, either through the share rides to the car or through delivery methodology. And hybrid is a combination of both. I know people who do both. They'll do Uber or Lyft or Uber and Lyft. And they also have like a little bit of a side business through eBay or Etsy. Okay. Thanks for the great information. How do you expect the upcoming tariffs to affect drop shipping? Okay. So the tariffs will impact drop shipping. It'll even impact the inventory resale piece, even if you do not do a drop ship, uh, because at this point we rely a lot on imports. So there are a lot of widgets and a lot of things that are built outside the United States and they get imported. So what happened is when those products start coming in, if they are impacted by a tariff, the cost of the product as it enters the United States will increase. So the bonded warehouse in the United States that accepts the shipment will pay the tariff uh, to customs at the port of entry. That will now get added to the cost that that particular wholesaler has, and they will pass that on to their lower tiered wholesalers, which will then pass it down to the retailer. So ultimately, those tariffs will flow down to the consumer. So it's going to impact it in that the final cost will be higher than it would have been a year ago or 2 years ago. And tariffs usually go up and down. It's only recently that the tariffs have been a little bit more, in the news and higher than normal. Um, so it will have an ultimate impact on the prices of items that you're selling if those items are being imported. And like I said, most of the items that are used or consumed in the US, the hard goods are imported. So that's a good question. So what are the reasons that some folks start a side hustle? Uh, like I said earlier, based on your budget, you might need that extra income. So you might need to do it as a necessity in order to be able to make ends meet or get out of debt, or if you have a goal that you want to get a go on vacation or get a house or a car, and based on your current income, it makes it a little bit more difficult. You might establish a side hustle so that you can use this extra money to reach your goal much quicker. It's also a response to a need. Necessity is the mother of invention. A lot of the entrepreneurs, you'll hear stories of a lot of the entrepreneurs who started something as a side hustle or something that they needed for their own personal use, that they needed something to be done easier or better. And once they established that, they were able to then do it as a side hustle, which eventually became their main hustle and their actual company. A few of the examples are, if you see Shark Tank, you see all these people who come up with different inventions and different things that they want to do as a side hustle. And those were basically all because of a need that they saw in the market that was not currently being met. Um, you have Damon Johns who started the FUBU company. He started doing clothes at home. I think his mom and his grandma started helping him sew things and baseball caps and sweaters and hoodies and things like that. And he did it basically because he liked, making his own style as opposed to what was being sold commercially, and started selling it to friends and until he established a label and it blew into a full-blown company. That's one of them. The lady who invented Spanx is the same thing. I was reading her story a couple of months ago. She's also one of the shark in the Shark Tank now. She comes in as a guest sometimes, as a guest shark to help other entrepreneurs. And she did the same thing with underwear or the pantyhose because she didn't like what was being sold commercially. So a lot of people find that there's something that they think that they can do a little bit better than what's out there for their own personal need. And once it works, and they start spreading it out to friends and family, they realize that they're onto something and it becomes a very good business. Um, Another reason is passion. Some people like to do certain things, especially the artistic type. We do crafts, and a lot of people do crafts because it's entertaining to them, it's therapeutic to them, it relaxes them, it calms them. But then at the end of that particular project, they have something that they can sell. Uh, and a lot of people then start doing this on Etsy and they start doing things like that. I know an entrepreneur who was an artist and she liked to do this. She was always interested, I guess, in like the sip and paints. And she started doing that as a side hustle, and now it became almost a full-time endeavor for her. And she has a very good clientele at this point, and she does it, and she likes art. She likes to draw, and she likes to teach people. So she did the sip and paints, and she does it almost everywhere now. And she does it at home. She does it for businesses. It also becomes a team building activity for a lot of businesses. They'll bring it in so that their employees can get together and do something as a team, do something together and have fun while they're doing it. So that's another reason people do the passion that they have for something. And career shifts. Some people do things on the side that they like and they enjoy, and then they have their real job. And after a while, they realize that what they're doing on the side is really something that they like more than their real job. And it reaches a point where they start shifting it over and trying to make the side hustle more of their main hustle so that they can shift careers. Also, if somebody is semi-retired or retired, they might start a side hustle to, first of all, stay busy, and second of all, to make the money out of it. So, research and resources. There are a lot of resources out there that'll help you. Um, you have books of all kinds, and in a couple of slides down, I have samples of a lot of the books that are out there right now that can help you. YouTube is amazing. You can wind up finding side hustles. There's YouTubes on how to start a side hustle. There are YouTubes describing particular side hustles. There's a lot of them that go through the whole Uber process, the Lyft process, the drop shipping process. And it tells you everything from beginning to end. There are some presenters on YouTube that have a lot of links as to companies that do the drop shipping. So you already have part of the research done in that instance. So YouTube is a great source to get information. Um, and a lot of the people who are on YouTube doing all these videos are side hustlers. They're doing this as a side. It's amazing. You're learning something about side hustle from somebody who is doing it as part of that YouTube video. There's also a website called Side Hustle School, which is pretty interesting. They have podcasts and there's a subscription and it looks like it's free. I don't know if it's a temporary for a certain time period and then you have to pay for it, but they have a lot of podcasts that go through different hustles, also life stories of people who are doing something and they have questions as to how to make this work or why isn't this working the way they thought it would be. So there's a lot of different information out there. Fiverr is one of the heights side hustle websites, like I said earlier, where people who need something, they'll go there and they'll say, I need somebody to help me edit a book that I'm writing or a manuscript. Or I need somebody to install a wall mount TV with the frames and things like that. They're like odd jobs, and they're either services or on products as well. And people who are interested in doing these, they'll go into Fiverr and they'll look at what people need. And if there's something that they can do, they'll take that particular assignment, they'll reach out to the person and say, yes, I can do this for you. And this is the price. And in exchange for that connection, Fiverr will take a certain percentage of what that person is paying you in order for them to be able to use the website. So that's a good resource to start off with as well, just to see what's out there, what people are looking for, what people need and are buying. Then you have Alibaba. Alibaba, I call it the Amazon of China. They're basically Amazon and they're based in Asia and they import all kinds of products. Have toys, clothes, everything. If you go in there and let's say you want to do some type of a product sale relating to, let's say, wallets or pocketbooks, they'll have hundreds of vendors who sell all kinds of wallets or pocketbooks, different sizes, different number of slots for credit cards, of pockets, and things like that. And some of them look like they're designer made. They'll have, perfect stitching and the color graphics and everything. And the only problem is that it's in bulk. So some of them will sell you a dozen, some you'll have to buy 100 of them. So you have to look very carefully at what the minimum order is. The prices are very good. You wind up paying the shipping and the time that it takes for it to get here because most of these are imported. So that's one of the downfalls. But as far as getting a product, they basically have everything available. um, Google AdSense. If you have your own website, you sign up for Google AdSense. And what that does is there are companies that want to advertise on different websites. And what they do is they pay for people who have websites to actually put an ad on your website. So you're basically renting part of your website space, similar to like when you're renting a physical location. You're renting square footage if you have a commercial store, storefront. So in this case, you're renting the footage on your website so that a company can put an ad. And it goes all through Google. So the company that's putting the ad goes through Google. Google gives you the AdSense link. You put it onto your website. And as the ad gets printed on your website and presented, you get paid through Google by that company. If you do a lot of scrolling through the internet or you do weather or any news outlets, sometimes you'll see an AdSense pop up, and that's what that is. You'll see like Disney coming up with um, favorable hotel rates like for the next couple of weeks or cruises and things like that. So those companies pay Google to actually find them websites to put the commercial on it or the or that particular tagline. And if you sign up with them, you can wind up putting them on your website and you make money through your website that way as well. So you not only have a website that's a commercial website generating you sales, but you also have AdSense um, advertisements that are paying you as well. And then you have Craigslist. Craigslist, I don't know how popular it is at this point. A lot of people still use it to sell um, a lot of their used stuff. And then there are side hustle businesses that sell used items, furniture. They'll go out and they'll buy furniture and they'll resell it on Craigslist. And it's fairly cheap. So Craigslist is still around for certain products, sometimes being used, sometimes used products, and sometimes it's new, but I'm not sure how uh, how that's going with the new stuff. And competitors. If there's a particular side hustle that you're interested in, look at who's already in that market. Look at the competition. Look at the website that they have. Look at the products that they have. How are they selling it? Do they have a shopping cart that goes through PayPal? Do they have a shopping cart that goes through a different commercial company? And look at all that and then kind of work that into your business model to see if you think that you'll be in the right market to do something similar to that. And if your competitors are on the service side, ask them, how they do it, how does the business run? Um, a lot of people who are doing side hustles, they'll talk to you if you ask them questions. Uh, there was one time last year where I had to drop off my car at the mechanic, and I ordered an Uber to come back home. So I asked the guy, it's like, how does Uber work for you? It's like, how often do you do it? And he started talking. He was both registered with Uber and with Lyft. And I asked him, can you do both? He says, you have to turn yourself off of one before you turn yourself on the other. So, and he says that they each have different promotions. So he says, like in this week, I'm doing Uber instead of Lyft because if I get more than X number of rides, I wind up getting a higher percentage payout. He says, and then last week, Lyft was better because Lyft was giving a higher payout if you were working certain hours in the day during rush hour. So I guess Uber and Lyft use some type of data analytics or metric measurement where they know which week is going to be more business or which time of the day is more busy, that they'll get more requests for rides, and they give promotions to the driver. If you're willing to work, 6 in the morning, 10 in the morning, we'll give you a higher percentage of what you should have gotten. Or if you decide to work this whole week and you make over 100 rides where normally you would only make 80, we'll give you a higher percentage. So you'll learn that from other drivers because they'll explain to you how it works. And if you decide to do that, you already know in your back of your head, okay, so they have certain promotions and there's certain things. Instead of you learning it once you're in it, because that'll take you time to kind of understand what the process is, and it'll make it longer for you to actually be able to be productive and take advantage of whatever promotions are coming up. I had another ride with another driver a few months ago, and he was already retired, and he started doing this. So I asked him, how is it? I asked basically the same question that I asked the other guy last year. Uh, and this gentleman stays in a certain part of Westchester only, because he says Westchester and New York City taxi and limo commission, or the Uber and Lyft contracts, are different. So if you pick up a ride in Westchester County and you go down to the city, drop somebody off in the Bronx, and in his case, he had to drop somebody off um, in LaGuardia Airport, and he really wasn't told that it was going to be LaGuardia. Otherwise, he said he would have turned down the ride. He accepted it, thinking it was just, like the Bronx and it was close by. When you're out there and you drop the person off, you're not allowed to pick up a person outside of Westchester and bring them into Westchester. So he couldn't pick up a ride from anywhere in the Bronx or Queens and bring them up to Westchester, even if there was available. That you're not allowed to do that. And it's the same with New York City Ubers. They can drop somebody off in Westchester, but they're not allowed to pick up somebody from Westchester and go back to the city with that ride. So in his case, coming back to Westchester, he had to pay the toll and he wasn't going to be reimbursed. So that particular trip, he wasn't going to make a lot, because whatever profit he would have made, he basically had to pay for the toll to come back out of that profit. So that's something also that you need to figure out: what limitations are there in the side hustle that you're doing? What can you do and what you're not allowed to do? So that was interesting. So they both were very forthcoming and explaining the process, and what their schedule is like. One of them said, I usually work 3 or 4 hours in the morning, then I take a break, I go home, have like lunch, I relax, I run my own errands, and then in the afternoon I log on again and I pick up rides for another 2, 3 hours. And they try to avoid going outside of the territory, especially in the New York metro area, because you're not allowed to pick up people to come back to your home base. So that's something to be mindful of if you go for that. So this is the first slide with different books and guides that are out there. Talking about passive income, success stories, guides, pros and cons. It goes through, and there's, the dummy guides for, side hustles. It goes through the different side hustles. It explains the pros and the cons, and like what I call, the good, the bad, and the ugly of each one. And you have to go through those and figure out what you want to do. So there's two ways of approaching it. One is you actually look at the books and you figure out what's out there and what's a good fit for me, or you make up your mind based on what you've already know or see other people do. And if you think you can do that, then research that particular side hustle. So you have two ways of doing it. If you don't know what you want to do, start off with the books, get ideas, look and see which one is easy to get into, it's productive, and doesn't cost a lot to get started. And that brings us into how to find what your side hustle is. Uh, like I said earlier, is there a problem that needs to be solved, right? Clearly define it and how you can solve it. So is there a need somewhere that the market isn't addressing? Is there something that you can do different, uh, sometimes for your own personal self, that that other people might find useful as well? Brainstorming, list all the possible side hustles and narrow it down. Like I said, based on the books, there's a slew of side hustles out there. Go through that, or on your own. What do you like to do? What would interest you? What do you think that you would be successful and work that way? Look at the skills that you have, like I said, with the artist, with the sip and paint. Is there anything that you like doing, that you're passionate about, that you have a particular skill that you're strong at, that you can capitalize on that and turn it into a hustle? Look at what people are spending money on. You know, who are they? And this is kind of like similar to a business plan, but not as elaborate. But you're still looking at, what people are spending money on, what are people buying, what do they use, what do they need? And then once you figure that out, then you have to look at, how do you reach them? How do you advertise to them? How do you promote to them? And how do you get your website or your product or your service to them? And again, with the passion, is there something that you're passionate about, that you like, that you haven't been able to do yet, but that you know that you can make successful? Once that, I've thrown a lot of things out at you. So there's a lot that needs to be done, a lot of things that need to be considered. Once you reach that point where you've done your research, you have an idea more or less of what you want to do, you kind of know how much it's going to cost to get into it. Then you look at what side hustle do you decide to create or copy? Are you going to join something that's already out there, like Uber or Lyft or one of the delivery services? Is there something that you think that you can start on your own and it's totally something different and it's a new hustle? And why did you pick this side hustle? Was it because it's easy to get into? It's like, um, there aren't many barriers to entry. Is it something that is very economical to get into? You don't have to put a lot of money as far as like inventory, let's say. So why did you pick that particular hustle? And then what are you going to name it? And this goes back into the business formation. Are you going to set up some type of a company, especially if it's a product? Are you going to set up a company? Is there limited liability? Will you be liable for a product if somebody gets hurt or injured? Like I said earlier, if it's a consumable good, somebody, food, drink, or something that'll go on their skin that they'll use or wear, you might need to consider opening up an LLC to limit your liability. But then what is the name of the business? What are you going to name it? What will be your mission? What do you plan to accomplish with it? And what do you visualize your side hustle to be in 5 years? Is it something that is you want to keep it at a certain level just to like help you cover expenses? Is it something that you want it to continue building so that it can eventually become your main hustle or expand into a larger base where you can now add more products or different services? So you also have to keep that. You have to keep that goal in mind of where you see yourself in 5 years. Now, going back to the business structure will be based on your hustle. You can either be, if it's just a service, you can be self-employed, which means that it's very simple for tax purposes. You're a self-employed individual, you have income and expenses. You have to keep very good books and records of all your income and all of your expenses. You will not be able to deduct expense unless you have documentation for it. Okay, the IRS is starting to, over the last couple of years, to be a little bit more strict as far as expenses. They want to make sure that you have the documentation for it. If it's something that you can be liable for, somebody getting injured, definitely consider opening up an LLC or a corporation. Another aspect is this something that you're going to be doing alone, or will you have a friend, family member, or spouse do it with you? Would you consider them being a partnership, which means that then you would have to establish it as a partnership. And there's two different things to be mindful of. There's the legal structure, like I said, either self-employed, corporation, partnership, LLC. And then there's the tax structure. So self-employed, you're taking care of the income and expenses on your personal return. As an LLC, for tax purposes, you can elect to be treated as a corporation, or you can elect to be treated as a self-employed individual, even though you're an LLC. So in that case, you need to have your books and records reflect that as well. So you have the legal structure and you have the tax structure. Earlier, I was talking about your goals, where you see yourself in 5 years. They're SMART goals. And this, you can actually do it even for a year. You can do it, like where do I see myself in the next year or even the next month? And, the SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So for specific, you plan effectively with a specific target in mind. So you might tell yourself, I'm starting this side hustle because I have a shortfall that I need to cover in my budget, and I need to make at least $500 a month. So that's your goal. You need to make at least $500 a month. The measurable piece, you have to track your progress. Are your sales coming in? or your services that you're rendering coming in where you will make that $500 a month. If you're not making it, do you need to somehow increase the sales that you're of the product that you're selling? Do you have to add a different product, a complementary product, or do you have to do services in a different way? Or are you billing correctly? Are you really getting what you're worth as far as the service? Are you billing the right amount? Attainable, is that an attainable uh number? Can you reach the 500? Or is it something that doesn't matter how much you sell or what services you render, you do not have enough hours available for you to make that $500? So you have to look at the attainable piece as well. And relevant. Basically, it's all relevant, right? Because you have this particular goal that you want to reach. So always make sure that you're doing it for a purpose and make it relevant and timely. How often do you keep track of your sales and your books and records? And that brings you back to the measurable. You know, do you have enough time to be able to get it done by the end of the month so that you can get that $500? And then this is a checklist that you should use when you're looking at your side hustle. Time, right? How will I manage my time? How much time do I have available with my out of my full-time job and other responsibilities? Can you put in an hour or two a night? You know, if you're doing online sales or any online service, you might be able to pull it off. If it's something that, you're doing like an Uber or a Lyft, are you willing to do it, a couple of hours a night? Is there a car available for you to do it at the particular time? So you have to look at all of that. And what structures do I put in place to stay focused, right? That goes back to your goal. If you have a goal and you have a vision, that will keep you focused and it will help you make up the time. The expense on the income side, right? How much will it cost you to launch the particular side hustle? And to maintain it? This is something that you have to continue putting money in. If it's a particular service, you can start it very cheaply, and you might not have to put that much money in to start or to maintain it, other than, any supplies that you might use, office supplies, computer, things like that. If it's sales that you're dealing with, you might need to outlay, some money in order to get your initial inventory, and then to renew that inventory and always keep it available for sales, unless you do the drop shipping. Okay, well, I need materials. If you're doing your own sales, you can need to get um, shipping items, boxes, labels, and things like that. How will I get paid? Like I said earlier, some websites you can use PayPal, you can use commercial clearinghouses for commerce accounts. Some people even use Zelle. They'll open up a business account with Zelle and use that. How are you going to accept payments? Is it going to be if you're rendering the service, are you going to take cash? Are you going to take check? Will you accept credit cards? And then for online sales, definitely will be through credit cards or debit cards through a merchant account. How do I raise funds? Uh, will you need to borrow money? Will you need to borrow money from friends, relatives, or use your credit card in order to start it? And that's kind of dangerous. So be careful if you use credit cards. Make sure you start paying it down as quickly as the income is coming in. How do I maintain my financial records, especially for tax purposes? Keep detailed records of your income and all of your expenses. Keep receipts for everything. How do I market it? That depends on the type of business. You either market it through Google, you can market it through Fiverr if you become a vendor through them. A lot of people who have Etsy, they wind up marketing their business through Facebook or some of the other social media. So research that as well. And can I barter? You have a lot of people who, in the trades especially, they do bartering. So you might have somebody who's a plumber and somebody who's an electrician, and the electrician needs a plumber and the plumber needs the electrician. Instead of them paying each other for the services, they'll barter. So the plumber will work on, leaks and things that that are taking place in the electrician's home in exchange for the electrician to come in and rewire things or look at the circuitry and things like that. So instead of actually getting paid, there's a barter arrangement. Remember that bartering is still taxable income for tax purposes, so that doesn't take away from it having to be reported. Talent and partner, will you need a partner? Do you need a mentor? Who's going to keep you accountable? Is there somebody who's going to help you out, give you that support and your help? The structure, how will you structure it? Like I said earlier, you have sole proprietorships, LLCs, partnerships, and it all depends on whether or not it's online or in person. And trust and believe, am I afraid of succeeding or afraid of failing? That's an interesting statement. A lot of people are afraid of failing because they're afraid of starting something and it not working out, and they've invested time and money. So a lot of people, 99% of the people are always afraid of failing when they're starting something new. We also have people who are afraid of succeeding. They're like, well, what if it gets too big and I can't handle it because I still have my full-time job? I won't be able to do it. And they hold themselves back. There's a delicate balance on that. Don't be afraid of failing and don't be afraid of succeeding. There's always a way of working it into your lifestyle and your job if it comes to that point. And how, when do I decide if it's not working and when to pivot? So if something is not working, let's say in the first year, usually a lot of people will give up and say it wasn't the right product, wasn't the right time, wasn't the right service, the market isn't there for that. And they'll move to something else. Some people will still have the faith that they're doing it correctly and that it will continue working out and they'll continue doing it. At some point, you need to consider that if it's not working, you need to pivot and move on to something else. The IRS has what they call the hobby rule. They require a business to actually make a profit for at least 3 out of 5 last 5 years in order for it to be considered a viable business. If you do not make a profit in 3 out of the last 5 years, IRS will say that you're actually working on a hobby and not a business. So keep that in mind that for tax purposes, you should be turning a profit uh, within a certain number of years. And we're running a little late, so I'm going to go through these a little quicker. This is another sheet with more side hustle books. And this first book on the left, Side Hustle to Main Hustle, that's where I said, sometimes your side hustle will really be a fairly big endeavor and it'll work out where you have to not consider, should I be doing this full time and take over as a main hustle? And then have a few more here, turn your fan them into cash. And the one in the middle is interesting. What if it does work out? And that's where a lot of people, like I said earlier, they have the fear of it making it afraid of succeeding. So what if it does work out? So at that point you consider, do I now do this full time? You know, I need to now put more time and more money into it and more effort. Do I quit my full-time job and do this full-time? Or you can consider then getting somebody part-time to help you. At this point, you start bringing in an employee or somebody else who might be, interested in a side hustle to help you out on this business and then let it continue growing. These are the resources that I always put at the end of our. Thank you, everyone. That's my contact information. If you have any questions, reach out, email, phone, just let me know.